that's fine. We're here. So at this point, if anybody's got cell phones on, please put them on mute. I would appreciate it. And if I don't have any slips, if anybody wants to speak before us, it's not an applicant. You need to fill out a slip and give it to our staff over here. With that, call this meeting, the regular meeting of the Cottonwood Planning and Zoning Commission to order. It's 6:17 p.m. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Hart?
Here.
Commissioner Wasden?
Here.
Commissioner Narwood?
Here.
Commissioner Wilder? Absent. Vice Chairman Williams?
Here.
Chairman Kyler? Absent.
Thank you. Next item of business is the approval of minutes of November 20th, 2017 regular meeting. If I don't hear any corrections or additions, I'll entertain a motion.
I move that we approve the minutes.
Second.
Have a motion and a second to approve the minutes. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
So carried. Okay, at this point, we have what we call calls to the public. And again, I didn't have any slips up here for anybody who wanted to speak on anything that's not in our agenda. This is the time to talk to us about it. Not seeing anybody, we'll proceed to old business, which there is none. So on to new business. We have several items there. First one is PCU 15001, MOD Coyote Trail sign. Jim, you handling this, sir?
Yes, I am.
Alrighty, it's all yours.
Thank you, Vice Chairman Williams, members of the Commission. This modification to a conditional use permit, which is conditional use permit 15-001 for the Coyote Trails Golf Course. Previously, they had a conditional use permit approved in 2015 for an off-premise sign, which was constructed and located at the corner of 89A and the road?
Rosetta Ranch.
Rosetta Ranch Road, thank you. I went blank there. When the Vineyards development began their development processing, they requested for Coyote Trails to move that sign so that they could do their development. Coyote Trails did move that off-site sign onto their own property, which they have an on-site legal sign. As a part of the PAD and the development plan that the Vineyards processed, did include Coyote Trails Golf Course signage on that sign. As a technicality, we are processing this conditional use permit modification because the sign itself is a different sign. It's basically in the same location as it was previously, which is there at the corner of Rosetta Ranch Road and 89A. The sign that was there is now relocated up here, generally in this vicinity right there, which is a legal on-site sign for them now. This was the sign that received the approval in 2015 and is now on site. That's what it looked like while it was located there. This is the new sign for the Vineyards. The top portion there, you can see that's what would be a top view looking down on the sign. This portion over to the left is what the Coyote Trails portion would be on the overall Vineyards subdivision signage. So this portion is technically replacing what was approved in 2015. So you can see that this is the Vineyards development. Their new sign would be located here, which is where the On the Greens sign would be. And that's a location looking at it from the street view. So with that, that's all my presentation that I have to say. Like I said, it's a technicality basically to change the conditions from what they had in 2015 to this newly designed sign. Ken and Chastity, who is with On the Greens and Coyote Trails Golf Course, is here this evening also if you have any questions of him.
Any questions of Jim?
Jim,
Yes.
and when they made the submittal, was there any consideration of having the Coyote Trails part of the sign on the right side? Since the Coyote Trails, the road to the Coyote Trails is on the right?
I don't think that was part of the discussion at the time. So you're saying, was there a discussion that it be over
Yes.
here on this sign? No, I think that was just sort of the way it got drawn up and the preference of the developer of the vineyard. That might be a question you could ask Mr. Chastity. I don't recall during the process of any discussion of which side of this subdivision sign that would be located on.
Okay.
Mr. Watson? Mr.
Yeah, I have a question, Jim. I need to really have what the definition of a sign area is. At this point, when I look at this, it asks, the question in my mind is, let's take the original Coyote Trails sign. What was the size of that sign that was approved? And how did you determine the size of the sign?
The size of an off-site sign that would be permitted for a subdivision is 40 square feet.
So that one is 5 by 8.
Correct.
Okay. If I look at, could you go back to the first slide you had up? Of the picture of the picture of all three panels. There you go. Now, what's the size of the panel that Coyote Trail sign is on? Is it 40 square feet, or is it more?
Said the overall dimension
Of the panel that
from
Coyote?
here to here is 12 feet.
12 by what?
We got a 5 foot here.
5 by 12.
That's if you're
Keep the
including
colors out.
the column.
No,
So
just
that-
the panel, just not the columns,
Okay.
just,
We don't have that.
I don't have that dimension.
yeah. Well, it raises the question in my mind is how do we define the size of a sign? Is it what encompasses the border of the copy, or is it the background,
No.
total size of the background that the copy's on? Because you can then measure a sign two different ways.
Right. But it's the overall dimension.
Right.
It's the overall, then it becomes
Yeah.
about 6.
Jim?
It's
Jim,
the-
if you look at the first exhibit in our
I couldn't,
file, it says 35 inches by 80 inches.
that's 3 by,
That's 3 by 10,
that's
30
30.
feet.
Okay. I couldn't find that,
It's at the
but
it's at the bottom,
It's the third page, just before,
it's got
just before that,
three panels
just
there.
before that page.
okay. I looked all over the,
Keep going back forward, yeah, one more page. Right there,
The
the
bottom.
bottom.
okay. I missed that. So that's 3 by 8, 24. Okay. So it's the entire size of the background, not the
Correct.
copy? Okay,
Yes, that's correct.
all right. Got it. Thank you.
All right. I don't have any questions, Jim. You
Okay.
said the representatives from the agents here? Yes, from the subdivision. Yes, sir, please state your name.
Hi, I'm Ken and Chastity. I'm the manager of Coyote Trails and On the Greens.
All right. You want to have anything to add to this, or?
We didn't have a lot of input to the size or anything of the sign. We're very grateful for the presence they did give us out on the highway, so we just sent them the logo that we'd like to have on it, and they supplied us with this.
Okay, very fine. Mr. Hart, you had a question about that?
Well, the same question is, has anybody considered putting the Coyote Trails on the right side? Because if you want people to go to Coyote Trails, you want them to go to the right. And if you haven't, I would suggest you might want to consider it. It's just a matter of basic use of signs.
Right. We will bring that to their attention if
Okay,
it's,
all right.
you know, it's their choice. I mean, it's their sign.
Okay, good. Mr. Norwood,
I'm good.
you good? Okay, thank you, sir, very much. And anybody from the audience would like to speak to this matter? Hearing none, I'll close the floor. Discussion with the commissioners, please. Commissioner Hart, we'll start with you.
I don't know, I think it's a nice sign. I like the basic look out of it, and the colors. I think it'll work out really nice on the corner. And it'll be a nice, and it'll keep in what we're trying to do with our monument signs and such. So I think it'll be a nice addition.
Mr. Wasden?
Looks good. It's nice.
Mr. Norwood?
Looks fine. That's good.
I would second that. I think it's a very good looking sign, and glad to be able to be part of that signage. I know that means a lot to you to get people back to you, because you are hidden back in there. So at this point, I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Vice Chair, I move that we approve PCU-15-001-MOD modification Coyote Trails Golf Course sign with the stipulation outlined by staff that the original stipulation from the August 15, 2015 approval remain in effect.
Do I have a second to that motion?
I'll second it.
Mr. Hart, second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, carried unanimously. Okay. On to item number 2. If I can get to the right page here. PCU 16001, MOD, TC Excavating. Jim, again.
Okay, thank you. This also is a time extension request for a previously approved conditional use permit 16-001, which was for TC Excavating. It received its original approval March 21st of 2016. With that condition, with that approval, it had stipulations in there and a time frame for when they would be performing some of the items that Commission stipulated to be done. They have requested a 24-month extension, and I have some pictures in here basically to show. Here's the subject site. Give a reference. Here's 6th Street. This is the City of Cottonwood Rec Center, the pool, right in this location. So it's just a couple properties to the south. Some of this I already stated. It was already granted in March of 2016. The property is zoned C1 light commercial, and it's used as a storage facility for TC Excavating. The site historically has been used for that use. Some of the stipulations with that original conditional approval, that the site be used for vehicle traffic to be paved, that portion has not been completed yet, and that is part of this extension. The improvements along the street, including the sidewalk, parking, and landscaping, that has not been completed as of yet. The rear fence, which was a neighborhood contention, is something that has been completed Since that's been done, there has not been neighborhood opposition to the operation. One of the stipulations was that they not stockpile and store material. They have not been doing that. The block wall was completed. The landscaping within the block wall to the rear of the property is not completed, and that is part of the extension request. The 40-foot buffer area has been left vacant, adjacent to some residential homes to the west. This is the timeline that they're requesting for the extension from between now through May 31st. That interior grading, the drainage area, and a detention structure would be completed in preparation for the rest of the project to move forward. Then the end of 2018 to have the streetscape improvements done, including sidewalk, which is a public works requirement, the landscaping and signage. That would be done in the latter portion of 2018. Then the landscaping to go in adjacent to 6th Street, and the final would be the landscaping within the rear wall to the west. So this here is the 6th Street frontage. So these are the improvements that were approved with the original condition. 40-foot buffer zone to the rear here, and the block wall is constructed at this location. A little close-up of the front streetscape area that shows landscaping and the parking area as it would be improved. And the rear landscaping adjacent to the properties to the west. This was the chain link fence with slats that was prior to their first approval. Shows another side of that. So you can see it was in need of some better screening. This is the wall as it was constructed and exists today. So that is one of the stipulations that they did improve early on. And you can see the wall as it continues on here. This is an adjacent property to the west. This is not part of the TC excavating. This was a picture shown when they did have material stockpiled on site. And that has been remedied. They have not been stockpiling material. This was a recent picture showing, back where that material had been stockpiled, and it's not present. The front gate seen from 6th Street, and the front parking area. So that's all pictures I have, and available for any questions. Also, the applicant and his agent are here this evening if you have any questions of them.
All right, thank you, Jim. Commissioner Hart?
Has there been any discussion on the fence that's along the northern property line? The chain link fence with the barbed wire top?
There's not a good picture of it that I have, but basically it would be sort of, well, you can't really see,
Yes,
that goes along
there.
those apartments. There has not been any discussion of that. And I don't believe there was
There was no.
a couple years ago.
Mr. Watson?
No, just in the timeline that was submitted, was there any discussion about breaking some of those out, in terms of, and incorporating that into the stipulations, the timeline that they had submitted? Yeah, those items.
That was the request of the applicant. for this timeline. If commission has anything you'd like to discuss differently than that, we could do so. If you want to put a different time frame on those,
Okay.
would be something at your purview.
That's a good idea. We
Yeah.
incorporate those. There's also a typo there. It says 19th instead of 18th. Commissioner Noren.
Yes, I have two questions, Jim. I'm not quite sure you're going to be able to answer one of them, but I am curious as to why Mr. Card has to bear the burden of off-site drainage coming through his property. What would be the reason for that? That he has to manage water from some other property and it goes onto his property?
Mr. Vice Chair,
Yes.
these were all discussed in previous discussions, and this is just the extension. So if we can focus on that and, you know.
Yeah,
So-
they agreed to do that originally. And,
Yeah, I was here, but I don't remember any, so I just.
Yeah, I remember them,
Forget it, it's
yeah,
okay.
then, that was part of their drainage plan that they had to drain that water that was coming from, would come down from the west. Could come, they need to have it come through their property anyway. They don't want to flood their property, so they had their engineering company designed so that that would flow through, and then when it got to Sixth Street, it wouldn't flood out there either, because they've had some flooding on Sixth Street right there, so their plan was to correct that, as I remember. Okay. Jim, I don't have any questions. We'd like to hear from the applicant, please, or
Okay.
the engineer. You'd state your name, sir, when you get to the microphone. Thank you.
That card.
All right.
What can I tell you about?
Okay. Talk a little bit about the reason for continued extension, and just give us a little background on that a little
Well, we
bit.
simply call it life. You know, our list of desires for that property was a little bit too large for our year-and-a-half projected timeframe, especially with certain things that, you know, occurred in business in that particular timeframe. We just need a little more time.
Right.
It's not anything that we don't intend to do and don't want to do. It's just we need some more time to fulfill this commitment.
Okay.
Just that simple.
Just that, yeah, it's pretty straightforward. Yes, sir. Commissioner Hart, do you have a question? No. Mr. Washington?
I understand that there was a lot. I remember when this came through, there was a lot to this, so I understand that. My only question would be just on the proposed timeline that you have submitted. I'd like to see the landscaping be more of a priority, that we could get those areas taken care of sooner rather than later. I know the sidewalk paving and signage landscape plans submitted, that you have that starting this summer, and then a year from now, landscaping to be completed on property, the frontage facing 6th Street. Is there a reason why you couldn't accelerate and put the landscaping on 6th Street and get that out of the way? That, I think, you know, internally, I know you've got your hands full
It's
with
just
a
a
lot.
situation of, you know, working our way to the front, but as far as I'm concerned, we can move those things around as long as they match up with the difficulty of the rest of the project around that.
Yeah.
If we landscape and then we have to disturb that in order to do other parts of the project, it seems like we would just wait. But I haven't really looked into whether.
I just remember on that front, I know there was gonna have to be, you're gonna bring up some of the pavement that was already there for that, so I didn't know if there's anything else going in, but I think that's probably, you know, one of the biggest things that, when we talked about this before, was aesthetics, and that would be one of the things that it didn't appear to me that there was anything else that would necessarily get in the way with that. So
yeah, I'm not opposed to, you know, to looking at that as
All right.
being part of our first item.
yeah.
Mr. Washington, I see the engineers here tonight.
The importance is to not pile all the items on one day.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Could we have your engineer maybe come up and answer some of the engineering problems of doing that, if there's any? Put him on the spot here. There you go. Your name, sir, please.
Krishan Ginige with SCC.
What would there be any problems of, would you have to go back in and redo the landscaping based on all the things you're coming forward with, or?
I think it's possible, but if we have a choice, I think they should do that section together, or the landscaping should be like the last thing after they go through. Because if I can recall right now, this whole area is paved, correct? So,
It needs to be removed.
so you had to remove that certain area. Jim. So, oops, no, I want so right now this area is asphalt. So let's say, for example, we start working on the landscaping and try to disturb this, and if we hold off on this paving till later, then we will have the landscaping, but it might not look good because this is supposed to be done at a later time. So I think it's a sequencing thing. It's not that it can be done, it's just a...
That's currently already paved, isn't it?
Right now the whole thing is paved, and
Right.
what they'll have to do is like they'll have to come back and take some of this asphalt out.
But you wouldn't go, I mean, you've repaved that was recently done. You surely wouldn't take all that up and repave new for the landscaping, I wouldn't
It's
imagine.
possible that we would, because by the time that we get the aprons and the rest of that stuff in there, if there's only a few square feet left, it's easier to just
Go in
remove
and take it all up.
and then replace it, yeah.
So by the time we remove these areas and these areas, from a practical standpoint, I think it'll be difficult to salvage this, or else they'll have to be really,
So if that's a consideration anyway, I guess I'm looking at, is there any contingency based on that? If you're gonna have to do that anyway, I'm just looking at the aesthetic part of this on the front on 6th Street. If you're gonna anticipate doing that anyway, is there a problem with moving this piece up at the expense of something else? And on the enhancement from the street view?
Only in the matter of the amount of work that has to go in on 6th Street. If we were to swap those around, a lot more financial, stress goes into that 6th Street frontage if we need to do the entire thing at one time than working inside that yard. If we were to do the landscaping in particular, completely separate, we may need to move some other things around there to make it work out. If we're looking to just swap landscaping into by May 31st, then maybe we do that.
Sir, could you speak into the microphone, please?
You speak in the mic I'm sorry. Yes, we're recording this, so
There's
there you go.
people watching us on TV right now.
So maybe if we move that landscaping into that, that type of a deadline, we could do that, but we would have to look at possibly moving other things around in our list.
And that's what I'm after.
Yeah.
And on the 2-year extension, you kind of would juggle this around. I would say from my perspective, I can't pretend to speak for everybody, but the aesthetic look of that, if that could be.
You don't love it? When you drive by, you don't just love it?
Yeah. One of the things that we're trying to do is anytime that there is disruption to enhance, whether that's landscaping, trees. So if one of those went down the list, one went up, I'm fine with that. That's just, if it's possible to get that out of the way.
If we have the freedom in a 2-year extension to move these things around and take those things as importance comes to the city, then that's
Yeah.
fine.
Yeah.
We can do that, for sure.
That's why we wouldn't leave the detail out, let them,
Yeah.
as long as they get the project done.
Thank you. That's all I had for you.
Yeah, excuse me, one more. You know what? All right, I don't have any questions. Thank you, sir. We appreciate it. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Any additional comment from the audience at this point? If not, I'll close the floor to the public. Commissioner Hart, comments?
No further comments.
Okay. Mr. Wasden?
I don't have any issues with that. I'd like to see us, just kind of what I mentioned before, see if we can't place an emphasis on getting the landscaping.
I think
making
that's
that
just a good
priority.
suggestion, yes. Yeah. Commissioner Norwood?
No questions.
Okay. Yeah, I would emphasize that too, is maybe we won't set you to this specific deadlines, but we want, the overall, I think we want to definitely get completed. And if you can move that landscaping up and get it done, that would be great. But I understand personally you don't want to have to go back there and dig up everything and redo it. So that sort of makes sense. With that, I'll entertain a motion, Commissioner Wasden.
I move that we approve PCU-16-001-MOD time extension, TC Excavating / that car with the following stipulations. Do you want me to read those or just mention?
Just one thing, can you clarify, let's say number 1, 2, 3, 4, so where is the landscaping moving to, number 2?
No, we're just not going to stipulate any time frame for any phase. We're just saying, let's give them they have 24 months to complete the project.
With recognizing that there is the submitted breakout with an emphasis on completing the landscaping
you can
first.
build that in too if you want to.
So, do you want me to read those? Okay. So, number 1, that the project is developed in conformance with the Planning and Zoning Commission approval dated December 19th, 2017, and the conditions of approval from March 21st to...
Can you please change that to December 18th, please?
December
Oh, yeah,
18th.
December 18th, sorry. That's right. Bob already told me that. December 18th, 2017, and the conditions of approval from March 21st, 2016. 2, that the project is developed in conformance with the site / landscape plan submitted on March 15th, 2016. 3, that the project conforms to the code review comments dated June 23rd, 2015. 4, the changes as written in the letter of intent dated March 14th, 2016 are adhered to as detailed, including the establishment of the 40-foot buffer zone on the west side of the property within 30 days, limiting the vehicle access between the hours of 4 o'clock p.m. and 9 o'clock a.m. the next morning. 5, storage / stockpiling of materials, dirt, rocks, etc. will not be permitted. 6, the conditions of approval shall be completed by 24 months, December 18th, 2019, from the date of approval of the Planning and Zoning Commission or the Conditional Use Permit shall be subject to revocation. 7, a certificate of zoning compliance documenting the completion of conditions shall be issued by the timeline specified. And 8, that the timeline submitted by the applicant be adhered to within 24 months with a priority placed on completing the landscaping in the initial part of that plan.
All right, I have a motion. Do I hear a second?
I'll second it.
Second. I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Mr. Hart? Aye? Are you an aye?
Yes.
Yes, okay. Passed unanimously. Okay, thank you. Number 3, PCU 16004, another modification, Tierra Vieni, for an extension. Jim?
Thank you. Once again, this is a extension for a modification to Conditional Use Permit 16-004, which is for the Terrabeni Farm project. They received their original approval January 25th of 2016 with a condition that it be completed within 12 months. They came back for a 6-month extension, which was granted January 23rd of this year. They're still working on water availability for the site. Some grading site improvements have been done, but the technical nature of the water availability is still being worked out for irrigation of the site. The anticipated seeding of the site would be July of this coming 2018. The site is on South Willard Road, actually encompassing both sides of Willard Road in this vicinity. This is a rough layout of how the site would be laid out. This is Willard coming through. It would have the gardens and plots, stands for retail locations. They want to set up greenhouses and set up on-site produce to be sold from that site. Okay, so this is the extension request. So that it be completed another 6 months, so that would allow them to July 1st to complete the water source availability and begin seeding the site July 1st of 2018. Here's a couple of pictures of the active site grading going on. That's all I have for the presentation for this extension, and Bernadette Selna with Tara Benny is here also if you have any questions.
Commissioner Norwood, do you have any questions, sir?
Yeah, I do. I hope it's okay to ask these questions. I noticed that on the plan that they are going to put in, I just noticed actually the first time that I saw anything about greenhouses. Okay, that looks like something new to me. I know there's some things that say stands and 4 and 4 and whatever, but I don't recall greenhouses. But my question, regardless of what the structure is, when it comes time to put those structures on this property, will they have to determine precisely, in other words, will the planning department have a say as to the location, a specific location of those buildings and greenhouses, or will they be allowed to put them wherever they want?
They would have to come in with, a little bit more of a detailed plan with this, so that the building department could approve those plans.
Would that also include sales stands for selling produce? So they could put that anywhere?
Yeah, so that is all, those types of things have already been approved, since this is just an extension. And this is a site plan that was submitted 2 years ago with the original approval.
Yeah.
Any other questions, sir? Commissioner? Any other questions? Okay. Commissioner Hart?
I'm just curious, have they decided yet on the nature of the produce? I also noticed that there was mention of an orchard. What are going to be the nature of the
I think that might be a good
trees?
question for the applicant to talk about.
Yeah.
The type of produce or trees.
Okay. Mr. Wasner? Jim, I don't have any further questions, no.
Okay.
Wait, I do have one question. Do we have any input from the city on that gray line? It seems like it's mainly a city problem, and we'll talk to the applicant here, but it seems like they're having some problems with getting this gray line to them.
A lot of times, the time frame just doesn't always work out with what you think it will ahead of time, and things do move a little bit slower. Not
Okay.
just on the private side of things, but also on our side.
Do we have any input from the city that they can meet this deadline, or have you heard anything?
I have not heard
All right,
anything.
thank you. All right. The applicant, please, is here.
City wants slow things.
And your name, please.
Bernadette Selna.
Hello, Bernadette, thank you.
Hello, thank you. To answer, I know that's been approved, but to answer your question about greenhouses, we have been asking for hoop houses. So if I apologize if I put greenhouses in there, because I get them, there's a difference, and there's no permit structures. So, and as far as the water is concerned, the city has been very helpful with us. I have absolutely no complaints. The issue at this point was finding the sleeve between the eastern side and the western side of Willard, and then making the connections. There was some question as to whether it was a 6-inch or an 8-inch sleeve, and at this point I do believe that it has been determined, and I don't know what it is. I'm not doing that part of it. I mean, I'm not putting in the sleeves, so I
Right.
don't know what the inches are, but the people who need to know. And so that has been the issue with the water. And then we've done, we took some soil from another city project and did some land reclamation, and that is our next step at this point, is to continue with improving the property. And once the connection, the sleeve between the east side and the west side is determined and filled, then we can, at that point, continue our trenching to the location, which is on the other side of that, like the end of the cul-de-sac down there, and run, yes, down there. And that's Air Park Road, and then bring it, by the trench will come over and then connect to the sleeve and over to the water tank, somewhere in that area, and then over to where, this is obviously a hand drawn thing, but where that little circular thing is where the, where our tank, roughly where the tank is.
Okay.
And so connecting the tank is a straight line from where the tank is across the sleeve, and just talking with the city how to connect and get all of our water connections.
Sure.
So we can get the water to the tank.
Okay. Commissioner Norwood, any questions? No. Commissioner Hart, questions of the applicant?
Has the city given you any timeline so that you'll be able to irrigate? I saw that you were intending to plant in July.
No, we hope to have it green by July. We don't want to miss another season. We want to have the water in. We're trenching again now. We're trenching again now. The intent is to have it seeded so we can do some more land reclamation long before July. But it should be green by then.
Are you getting? Does it look like the city looks like it will be able to make it?
It appears to me, I have no reason to believe otherwise. It appears to me that everybody is doing everything they can.
Okay. And then, again, what kind of produce, and in the orchard, what kind of trees? Fruit, apple, peach, apricot, probably more apple because of the weather and the draw on the, but fruit trees basically.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Commissioner Wasden?
Yeah, I think just a couple quick questions. One, we have Benny spelled B-E-N-E, and I look up there and it's
B-E-N-E. It's Italian for good earth.
Okay, so up there it has an I, so it is
yeah,
E.
And that was probably one of the first letters that I did typo when I submitted it.
Okay.
Sorry.
All right.
The E and the I are reversals for me. Sorry.
Is 6 months enough, do you think, of an extension for you? Or?
I hope.
Right.
I mean, we're working diligently, and I have faith in the people I'm working with. So,
all right.
I mean,
And
why are you offering more? I'll take it.
Well, I know some of these things, like we've acknowledged that it's not necessarily tied to, you. So if you knew something like, yeah, till August, if you gave me a couple extra months or something like that.
You know what? That would be helpful, because then that would be the beginning of our next season. So that would be great too.
That's something we can discuss. And your brother, where's your brother at? He's been here the last couple of times. Yeah.
Actually, he's home taking care of my mom.
Okay.
Oh,
all
good,
right.
yes. That's very good.
Yes.
That's all I have.
Okay. Is the line, what's your understanding, where is the line located at this point? Is it up basically to your property?
The city's, my understanding is at the cul-de-sac area, and then over to our property line, down in the wash down.
Oh, down here?
Yeah, down in the wash, the south.
Right.
In that area, it's, okay, this one right here. Okay. My understanding is comes along into here, and this is like a mound of a hill, and it comes to the property line in this area right
But is it in place now, just to connect?
Yes, the reclaimed water line to our property line is in place.
Oh, okay, it's just that sleeve going under the Willard.
The sleeve in this area is where we're connecting.
All right.
And then the trenching will come here with 245s is what we're told, and then down in this area.
That's fine. Okay, thank you. I was just concerned that they'd even put in the line yet, and where we were still with that.
The line is in. What we have to do on our side, and again, it's working with people who know what they're doing, is because of the shells in the water, there's a filter on one side, and then it comes to our property line, and there's more filtering on our
Right.
side, and things of this nature. So the water that we get
Sure.
is, can go through the irrigation.
Sure, yeah, that's good. Well, I think that was Commissioner Watson's concern. If
Okay.
we, time-wise, we don't really want to see you back here again. Have to come back.
Personal, but I'd
We're
like
just trying
to
to
be
help
on
you
my
out.
way.
I'd be for a whole year, but if we don't need that, fine, thank you very much. Anybody from the audience to speak to this issue? Don't see any. Close the floor to the public. Commissioner Norwood, you want to start our discussion?
No comments.
No comment? Commissioner Hart? Mr. Wasden?
I still think it's a good project, and I don't know if we're open to, with situations like this, making an extension beyond the request of 6 months, just so that it's not so much of a burden. I know there's other pieces that are getting connected, so
Yeah.
if anybody's open to that, then.
Yeah. I think I've answered my question. As long as that, the city's got their line there, basically their property line, we're just doing that extension across underneath there, that sleeve. Would seem to me they could get that done within 6 months and get up and operating. So I would go along with just approving it as
At 6
as
months.
requested. Mr. Wasden, can we have a motion, please?
Yes, a motion to approve PCU-16-004-mod time extension, Terry Benny, with the following stipulations. That the project is developed in conformance with the site plan submitted January 12, 2016, and with the approval of the Planning and Zoning Commission on January 25, 2016. 2, that the project conforms to the Code Review Board comments dated December 24, 2015. 3, parking will need to be reviewed and approved by staff. 4, dust control will be required over the life of the project. The applicant will submit dust control plan to staff for approval. 5, a lighting plan will need to be submitted and approved by staff prior to installation of any lighting structures. All lighting must meet dark sky requirements and ordinance requirements. 6, all structures will need holding permits and approval. 7, certificate of zoning compliance documenting the completion of conditions shall be issued by the timeframe specified.
I have a motion. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, unanimously approved. Item number 4, PCU 17006, bike shop on Main. Jim?
Thank you, Vice Chair Williams. There has been a bicycle shop located at North Main Street and 5th Street. They currently are constructing a canopy, shade structure out in front, and it's their desire to have outdoor display of the bicycles during their open business hours and then take them in at night. Since they're in the CR, commercial residential zoning, a conditional use permit would be required for any outdoor display areas. The existing building in the past and currently is being used as a retail bicycle shop. This is the front of the building. See the shade structure that is under construction, and that's where the display area would be in that area. This is the rear parking area of the site and the rear of the building. Some of the adjacent properties, this is an art gallery just immediately adjacent to the west. To the east is a small commercial center. To the rear, there's an adjacent vacant parking lot that is for the art gallery that you saw the picture of earlier. A cloudy day, and that's the property across Main Street. It's another property across Main Street. And that's all I have.
Okay.
So because of the commercial residential zoning is why this is here before you tonight for the conditional use permit for the bike shop.
Any questions of Jim, Commissioner Hart?
No questions.
Commissioner Hart?
Within the text of the presentation, there was an emphasis a couple of times on not having a door coming out to the display area. Is there a particular reason why there isn't a door out to the area?
That why is there not a door somewhere in this?
Either along the wall or
Area
even
here.
down at the end, so that it just seems like if you're gonna have a display out there, you might be easier to move stuff in and out if you had a door along the wall.
John Snyder, who is the contractor and also the agent for the property owner, is here this evening, and maybe he'd have a little insight for why the property owner is not designing a door immediately in that area. I'm not sure.
It's not a code problem then, or anything? Okay.
No, not, so they would just be bringing it out this main door here.
Yeah.
And
Right. Okay.
to,
And then also, I noticed there isn't anything about landscaping this area, which is basically just bare dirt right now and kind of unsightly.
let's see if I can get one of the pictures.
Well, the same picture you just had.
There is, in the front yard area, so what you're saying is this area here?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. That has not been for the display, since it is a bicycle shop, going to be remaining a bicycle shop, that we did not have a condition on there for additional landscaping, if you'd like to discuss.
So there
that
was
with
no
the
discussion
applicant.
about it.
No.
Maybe the applicant has some,
Right.
I don't have any questions.
Okay. Thank you, Jim. The applicant's agent is here, please. State your name, please.
John Snyder.
Yes, John, your floor. You have the floor, sir.
As far as there not being a door on the side there, there was already an existing door. This property is in a floodplain, so in order to put another door in, and it would also take away from the inside display area. There's not a whole, it's a small building. We did make the door that goes out onto the sidewalk bigger. We put in, it's now a 6-foot door instead of a 3-foot door, so that they are able to open that up and get the bikes in and out through that area easier. We're gonna make we're gonna make that sidewalk a little bit bigger there, right next to where we come out the door.
Right at the corner.
Oh, closer to the door, but we're gonna make a chunk over there so that they can come out that door and make the loop right there and put them out front. And as far as the landscaping, that's all, the building is under new ownership. We're really wanting to bring it up, make it look a little bit more presentable, and that's all in the process. But for today, we're just worried about being able to display the bicycles.
Commissioner Walton?
No, I, just out of curiosity, I had the same question about the landscaping. Is the pad up here, what is that?
He's wanting to put a picnic table out there.
Oh, okay, all right.
It's all part of, we're working on it.
Master plan, all right.
Yeah. We've already gotten rid of the fence in the front that was really unsightly, and it's in the process.
Good. Commissioner Norman?
Good. No, it's good.
Question? No, I don't have any questions. I think you've answered them there, and appreciate you coming in. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Do we have anybody from the audience want to speak to this item? Seeing none, close the floor. Commissioner Norwood, any comments?
No, I just wish them luck with the business and hope you're successful.
Yes. Commissioner Hart?
No further comments, yeah.
Mr. Wasson?
I am so happy to see this taking place. I've bought 2 rounds of bikes for my kids here, and it's an awesome little store, and I know kind of some of the recent changes, but taking down the fence, I think this is great, so I'm super pleased to hear about landscaping, because I think this could just be a really cool showcase place. So good luck, and I'm glad you're working on it.
Yes. I would second those comments, and so Commissioner Wasson, I'll entertain a motion.
I move that we approve PCU 17-006 Bike Shop with the stipulations, number 1, that the project conform to Code and Review Board comments dated October 3rd, 2017, and 2, the certificate of zoning compliance documenting the completion of conditions shall be issued prior to issuance of a certificate of occupancy.
I have a motion. Do I hear a second?
Second motion.
Second. I have a motion second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Commissioner Hart, you're aye?
Yes.
Yes. Unanimously approved. Phil, could you stick around for a couple minutes? I need to chat with you after the meeting. Thank you, sir. Okay, on to discussion items. I see we have none. Yes? None? All right. How about information reports and updates? Anything?
I have two things. One of them is I would like to introduce you our new admin, Amber Richards. She's
Yes,
been with
Amber.
us
Whoa.
more than a month now.
Great.
So,
We usually allot 10 minutes for her to introduce herself.
You have your slides ready?
and second thing is Jean's daughter called. I don't think she will be continuing to serve on the commission.
Yeah,
so
that's too bad.
Most likely we are going to have another opening. So for the audience, we have 2 seats open in planning commission right now.
Okay.
So
I guess we have 3, right? One's up for renewal, or
one for renewal and
that's
2
Commissioner
open.
Hart's.
Yes.
And that'll be voted on when?
We don't have the date yet.
All right.
Exactly.
All right.
So, but we will be notified on that.
All right.
That
And then we'll have 2 additional.
2 additional vacant seats.
All right, good. That'll keep you busy.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
I had a question on the advertising. Christine and I went around. She explained and got me straightened out that since we are a design review board as well as the Planning and Zoning Commission, well, I guess I'm not sure where that states at, but there's somewhere in the rules that we need an architect on board and somebody with design experience, and which we apparently had with Suzanne or with Jean. So I was concerned about that wording being very restrictive for a general member of the Planning and Zoning Commission, because I would like to see this open up, at the present time, all but one of us is an old retiree, and it'd be nice to have some younger businessmen, people in the industry be commissioners as well. Nothing against you guys or me, but and I think it's great we're serving, but it's nice to have, I would hope, and I was just concerned about that language being overly restrictive, so
Just one.
yeah, just the one. And then if we can open it up a little bit, I know originally we used to say meet 3 or 4 times a month, and that scared some people off since we really only meet once a month. Once in a great while, we may have a special session, so appreciate that. Any other items?
That's all.
That's all.
What's coming down the pike?
There are several projects, but there's nothing to talk about it here.
Oh, there he is. I can see on Scott's face. Something big. Something big. Olive Garden, I heard
Olive
it. It's
Garden.
coming.
Okay, good. If I don't have any further items, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I wanted to say something.
Okay.
I know just last week we had the joint meeting with the city council.
Yes, you went to that.
They asked for some input, and I submitted kind of what we had talked about, what we've been working on with in terms of the signage and kind of our view on as we go through. I know sometimes that emphasis gets a little bit lost. I was glad to hear about the landscaping, but and Ed pointed this out too, that we do have a good track record. It might not be something that everybody necessarily agrees on, but that we do have the city's best interests at heart and trying to make improvements where we can and standardize and be consistent with every one of the applicants that comes before us. So that's something I expressed on behalf of the commission at that meeting last week.
Thank you. I fully intended to go to that meeting as well, but
Me too, but I was sick.
yeah, I was too.
That's all right. I ate both of your lunches.
Yeah,
At
that's
least
good. Yeah, that's great
Yeah.
because conditions didn't permit that. There'll be several of these items on the city council agenda tomorrow night if anybody wants to attend for them to consider these amendments to the zoning ordinance, including the one that we did turn down. Or actually, we didn't turn down. We had a motion, but it died for lack of second regarding the procedure of amendments that council might want to make to one of our recommendations as to whether it has to come back to us. And that will be one of the items along with the signage and whatever. So anybody can attend. I won't be able to go. Scott, you have a
I
word.
just want to let you know, they changed the wording on some of that to give the council the option to send it back instead of just taking that away.
Yeah.
So now they can go ahead and approve it as is, make some modifications,
Right.
deny it, or send it back if they choose to do so.
Yeah, that wording.
They
And I had a comment I passed on to Barron about some of the verbiage that was in the presentation about what happened at that meeting that we had, that it wasn't unanimous. There was one person in favor of that, but it died of emotion, so that was correct.
Is the signage issue going to be on the
Yes.
agenda tomorrow?
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
yes.
Yeah.
All right. Is that now? That's just first reading, right?
Yes.
So, okay.
Yeah. So we got a lot of issues going, and we're going to dominate that meeting tomorrow night. So,
We have 4
yeah.
items.
I don't know if Commissioner Kyler will be there. I probably won't if I don't have to, but Barron, I think you guys can handle it. It sounds
We
like
can handle it. If
that's good. Yeah, I'm sure you can.
one person would be there, that would be nice. Just,
Yeah.
oh, I'm sorry. It would be nice to
All
have
right.
the commissioner.
Well, we'll see how we're doing tomorrow.
Okay.
Tomorrow, if I'm feeling a bit, which I am, I'm on the recovery end of that, so that should be good. And I'm glad we could make it tonight. We didn't want to delay any further
for
these
coming.
these applicants and everything. So, okay, with that, I'll now entertain a motion.
Let's get out of here.
Let's get out of here. Second, so approved. Thank you, everybody.